welcome back to the Bleav in Iowa State podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Carter.
I'm your host, Cody Van Ciello.
Cody, I'm not going to lie, man, it was a very tough game for ISU. Offensively, they struggled a bit, but then they were able to pull it out and win by 15. So for me, like, what are your thoughts on the Arizona State performance?
This truly felt like another case of Curtis Jones really being the main guy, and he basically was what helped Iowa State get over the finish line. He basically was the offense for about 70, 80% of that game until you had Keyshawn Gilbert come in late, really to help Curtis out, and then Josh Jefferson had a relatively quiet night. But this was another case of Curtis Jones putting on another resume boosting game performance to put him in talks about being the Big 12 Player of the Year.
Yeah. Um, I mean, 33 points, dude. Like 5 of 10 from three. It just seems like every single time that we were in a rut, he hit a huge three.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he had like he knew when Iowa State needed a shot. When we needed a shot, we often went to Curtis Jones, and he more often than not Saturday was able to knock down a huge shot. And you talked about like having those 33 points. I think I saw that in that game, Curtis Jones he was on the floor the entire time and he never turned the ball over. That was huge. It's the fact that Curtis Jones had zero turnovers.
Yeah, and one of the other things is the fact, like, because he was saying in his post game interview, he was like, man, he's like, if I don't play defense, I'm not out there. Like, he was definitely a plus on the defensive side of the ball, forcing a lot of live ball turnovers. I mean, when you look at the numbers, I or not Arizona State had 5 live ball turnovers in the first half, and then we turned them over, and they had 13. So I mean, that was an amazing feat by this defense, and defense has been keeping us in these road games.
Yeah, and I think some people may be concerned that this is becoming a trend, but I think honestly, with how often this is, I think this is just the way that Iowa State's gonna play. I think this is just the way that you're gonna see Iowa State. I mean, it goes back to everybody wanting to hunt after Iowa State. Iowa State's now the team that everybody wants to take down, so we are going to get everybody's best punch. And I mean, you never want to start off slow. You don't want to have it become a big concern. But it's due to the fact that we are the premier team outside of Houston. We are the team to beat in the Big 12. So we're going to get everybody's shot. And I think it's just a matter of how can you handle these storms. And I mean, when you come to March, you're going to be in these type of situations on a neutral court. So I think this does still play well to Iowa State because even though they are getting these slow starts, you're going to see something like this in March. And the key is, can you be able to get out of it and you don't let it get so out of hand that you can't win the game? And I think more than not, that was the case for this game because Arizona State, although they were like constantly keeping it at an arm's length, they could never get it to a distance where Iowa State could not come back. Their biggest lead of the whole game was the halftime when you had that crazy logo three from Arizona State and they went up seven to end the first half. And I think that was the biggest lead that Arizona State ever had.
Yeah, man. Another thing I want to talk about is just the Iowa State fans showing up in Tempe. What do you think about that? It was about 60-40.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona, it's a great weather. I mean, you have a lot of Iowa State alum moving out of the state of Iowa to live in a better like climate in Arizona. So it wasn't surprising that you had a lot of Iowa State fans travel to that game. But the fact it was 60-40, it felt like a neutral, like it felt neutral. Even though you were playing in Tempe, it felt like a neutral site game.
It sure did. I mean, and like I just listened to the Williams Moon show earlier today on the morning during my work and I just yeah, Chris Williams was like, yeah, man. He was like, it was crazy. And I do like the little rivalry that is basically being made between Iowa State and Arizona State because the football team was trolling the Iowa State fans because they brought the Big 12 title. Um, and like some people didn't like that, but I'm not gonna lie, I like that level of pettiness. It makes like rivalries more fun, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna do some. We have something planned in Ames when we play them at Jack Trice this fall.
For sure. And I mean, I'm not surprised the Arizona State team was there, but I was surprised. I didn't see was Sam Levitt or Cam Scatteraboo at the basketball game on Saturday?
I didn't see Cam Levitt, or it's not Cam Levitt, jeez. Sam Levitt or Cam Scatteraboo. I think Cam Scatteraboo is going to be playing in the Senior Bowl, so I don't think he was there.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not surprised they brought up the trophy to play against us because I mean, obviously, accomplishment you do happen to host them, so I'm not surprised by it. But did you see the quote that Curtis Jones had when he was asked about that? This was Ben Hutchins on Twitter. So I'm gonna try to find the quote. But basically, yeah. So this is Curtis Jones on the Cyclone Radio Network. When obviously Arizona State presented the trophy, Curtis Jones after the game said this. He said, "I seen them referring to ASU showing that Big 12 championship trophy, and I didn't like that too much." So clearly, Curtis Jones took it personal. I mean, you probably saw it on my Twitter page where I made the Michael Jordan meme.
Mm-hmm.
So it's clear that Iowa State, once they saw that, they took that personal, and I mean, they proceeded to come out with a 15-point win to get a, in a sense of get their pound of flesh.
Yeah, man. I mean, the fact that it really, really shows you that the football team and the basketball team support each other and are like very, very united. Because I know what can happen at some schools are that football team is its own thing and the basketball team is its own thing. But like I always see either the men's basketball team or the women's basketball team in the stands during the season. So like it's really really genuine love for both things. You see Rock QB1 tweeting. So like I mean like I love you love to see that.
Yeah, I mean that's just like what I see like with unity between all the sports here at Iowa State. I mean, you've got athletes supporting athletes, and I mean they that's a big thing for all the sports teams across Iowa State. I see it all over the place. I mean, I've seen basketball players be at volleyball, like wrestling, gymnastics. Obviously, they just had their crossover event, Beauty and the Beast. That was on last Friday, so that shows that those two teams are clearly like they have a great connection. And then you mentioned the basketball teams going to football. I mean, I see a lot more athletes at the football games as well. So clearly, Iowa State is one tight community, and I think that just goes from not just the expansion that continues to show that Iowa State is a big family from the regular community to the athletes.
All right. And one thing I just want to ask is obviously this might be an obvious answer, but who is your player of the game?
Easy, Curtis. I feel like there's no other way that you cannot like have Curtis in the conversation for player of the game because single handedly without Curtis we do not win that game. We don't.
Completely agree. Yeah, completely agree. And I mean, I guess if you don't want to do that, you could also say Joshua Jefferson or Keyshawn with the last 5 minutes. I'm not gonna lie, when he hit the back side of his head on the court, I was real nervous, Cody. Like I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that was very like that was kind of scary for Iowa State fans to see because like you're already down Milan Mochovic, so you already could not really space out like how you want to do. But if you were to lose like Keyshawn Gilbert for that like last 5 minutes, you're not gonna have that extra level of attacking the rim, and that would have made it even more difficult to win the game. So good to see Keyshawn Gilbert get up relatively quick, and obviously he had that 7-0 run on his own, which propelled Iowa State to getting that 15-point win and pull out one late in Tempe, and now you're looking ahead to tonight, where you will be on Big Monday to take on the Arizona Wildcats at the McHale Center. This will be a 9:30 local tip-off, and yeah, it's Big Monday, so you might want to try to see if you can even stay up late for that. But it's going to be a really fun one. Now, I did see the initial betting line was Iowa State -1.5. That has flipped
Hmm.
over now to Arizona being the favorite by 2.5. So I think it shows just that this has shown me that Arizona really like, even though they haven't really necessarily had the best of seasons, well, obviously non-con, they've improved in conference play, and obviously with the McHale Center, it's one of the best venues in all of college basketballs. And with them doing the whiteout, they're pulling all the tricks to get a what would be a very signature win for this Arizona Wildcat squad.
Definitely. One thing I want to say is just it's really really cool. In this era of cycling basketball, Cody, to just we're basically the hunted. We're the main attraction. So teams will pack out their entire like arena to come see us play because we're a top five team. They want a win versus a top five team. Um, I know I said on the last show that I was going to go to sleep, but nah, screw it. I'm staying up and I'm watching this game. I'm sacrificing sleep to watch this clones team. This team is elite, man. So I can't wait to watch this game tonight. But before we get deeper into that, let's take a look across. Let's take a look across the Big 12. So right now I'm about to share my screen and we're gonna look at the scores from Saturday.
Yeah, I mean Saturday was another festival of games across the Big 12. I mean, there's obviously there's the big elephant in the room that is going to be talked about, but let's go through the rest of the Big 12 slate before we get to the obvious game.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Okay. So West Virginia, they definitely had a letdown, mainly just because they were down by a lot in the first half, down 42-18 at Bramlett Coliseum, and Kansas State wins a big one at home, 73-60.
yeah, this was a much needed win for Jerome Tang and company. I mean, they were looking really bad in Big 12, like Big 12 play. It was a struggle fest just not being able to get those wins. I mean, they were up, I Bleav, double digits against Baylor and Waco, but they were not able to close out. So clearly Kansas State took that, lost a little personal, and put all their anger towards West Virginia. And you mentioned that 42-18 first half. I mean, it started out with two separate runs in the first half. Kansas State started the game off with a 17 to nothing run in the first like 6 minutes of the game, and then to end the half, they went on a 19-5 run. So those two runs were really big from Kansas State. And I mean, they knew they were desperate for a big win. So getting this win over a ranked West Virginia was huge for this Kansas State squad, and it was pretty. And then looking at the box score for this game, pretty even, like great distribution across the scoring. Doug McDaniel led the Kansas State Wildcats with 15 points. You follow that up with David Gasson with 14. Um, was that Jones? Max Jones
Max
with
Jones, yeah.
12. Coleman Hawkins put up 11 points, and C.J. Jones off the bench put up 10. So even like this was a pretty balanced game for Kansas State.
Yeah, man. I mean, when you can distribute the ball evenly like this, and you play great defense, you'll be able to win a decent amount of games. Let's see what Kansas State does, and see. I'm gonna look at their schedule real quick.
Yep.
See who they play before they play us on Saturday. They play Oklahoma State at home at 7 p.m. On
Mhm.
Wednesday night. So yeah, Wednesday night before that we have our own whiteout against them at 1
Yep.
p.m. on Saturday.
And Kansas State will definitely want to get that one back on Oklahoma State because earlier in conference play, earlier this month, Kansas State went to Stillwater and they lost 79-66. So for Kansas State, they want to get that game. They want to split. They want to get revenge on the Cowboys before they head up to Ames to face the Cyclones. So maybe Kansas State can get another win here. Maybe can get right before they get really tested in a tough whiteout environment against Iowa State. And with Iowa State and Kansas State, if especially in Hilton, the
Oh,
Iowa State fans, they want blood.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Just after all the craziness from last year and Tangate and all that. Oh, I know we're gonna be out for some blood for sure. Um, but man, how about Colorado, man? Colorado falls to 0-8 in the Big 12. Their just disaster of a season continues as Arizona gets a big win at home, moves to 7-1 in the Big 12, 78-63.
Yeah, not great for Colorado. And this is the third game in a row where they have lost by double digits. Looking at their conference games, five of their eight losses have been by double digits. You have the
Mm,
loss hosting Iowa State by 10. They lost at Arizona State by 20. They lost at Oklahoma State by 10. Lost against BYU by 16. And now you have this 15-point loss against Arizona. So when they're losing, they lose more often than not. That's they lose bad.
yeah. Nah, yeah, they definitely looks bad, and I mean it's probably going to continue to look like this. I'm going to take a quick look at their schedule, and really see if there's any type of chance in their upcoming schedule to get their first win. I mean, because you play Arizona State, you play TCU. I mean, TCU maybe could possibly be TCU or Utah maybe, because after that you have Houston at Kansas, UCF, and Iowa State, and that's going to be a rough 4 game stretch after that Utah game. They're going to lose those badly, and then after that you got to play Baylor, Kansas, and that K State. So like I don't know, it's going to be slim pickings for them, man, to find their first win in conference.
Yeah, so very down year for Colorado and Arizona. I mean, they're continuing. I mean, they're 7-1 in conference with that showing. So looked like after that Texas Tech game. I mean, there's still questions about Arizona. Some like I think Arizona is better than what like they still show because while they still are looking for that marquee win, the fact that they were 7-1 in Big 12 play, I mean, they are key. They're still going to be a contender. Like they still are a contender to win this conference. And I mean, this game tonight will really determine if Arizona State or Arizona, excuse me, can really step up to the plate and get that big win that they have been searching for this entire year.
Yeah, all eyes are going to be on this game. Fran Fischel is going to be calling this one, so well, he's one of our biggest fans. So yeah, tune in 9:30 to watch Arizona Iowa State, and then we're gonna go down, and then we're gonna see TCU has been on a skid ever since that big win against Baylor. UCF beats them by 27 at home.
Ow. This is one I don't even know. Like, I'm looking at the score here. You had for UCF, you have four guys in double digits point scoring, but Keyshawn Hall was the main man. He had 26 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals that really contributed. I mean, he also had I mean, let me see, I'm trying to pronounce that. Mustafa Time with 16, Ivy Curry with 14, uh, Darius Johnson, yeah, with 15, and then yeah, just this was just one of those games. UCF just put B2A. I mean, this is the unpredictability. I think some people were talking about UCF. Some people were mentioning like how unpredictable it is to play against UCF because obviously you still had that showing where they got beat by like 50 against Kansas, but then they proceed to put up the 85 against TCU. So this is the unpredictability. It's why I think UCF, although they can be, you never know what you're going to get at UCF. You're either going to if you catch them on a when they're shooting really good, it's going to be really difficult to beat them. But glad for Iowa State, we caught them on a day where we were coming off a loss. We took it personal, and we were able to outrun UCF.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the thing about UCF is that UCF could either get blown out by that much or they can win by that much. They have a talented squad, and I'm pretty sure. I'll say probably at least 8-12, or probably 9-11 will probably get you in the tournament in this Big 12. So we'll see what happens, and I'll definitely will be watching UCF for the rest of the year, especially when we go down there. I Bleav in February or March, something like that. I know we play
Yeah,
them coming up again. I think
yeah,
next month. So
hmm yeah. I'm taking a look at their schedule. Yeah, we go down to Orlando February 11th. But I mean, you look at the next game that UCF has, they got to go to Allen Fieldhouse, and
ooh
oh
we
boy, before we get to that, I think there's another couple more. Big 12 games. Let me take
Here.
a look here.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to talk about. I mean, Baylor winning by 15 against Utah. Utah started out hot. I mean, I think they were at 1 point up by 7 in the first half, and then Baylor was just able to shut down Utah. So yeah, it started out 11-4 for Utah. They were up 7, and then Baylor goes on a 22-3 run in the first half to separate themselves from Utah. And Utah was never able to get back to them, even after a 13-4 run that Utah went on to end the first half. Baylor never looked back. They never looked back, and so they get a nice road win. And this Baylor squad has really disappointed from what I think some people expected. What are your thoughts on this Baylor squad?
yeah. I think they have disappointed a little bit compared to what preseason expectations are. Although they do have a 5-3 record, so they're hanging in there. But I think they're definitely in the second tier of teams. They probably thought that they were going to be in the first tier, but I mean, basically Houston and Iowa State have separated themselves as the two big teams or the top two teams in this league. Um, I mean, and then we're gonna go there, and then we're obviously gonna talk much about the Houston and Kansas game, but the second to last game that we're going to talk about is BYU destroying Cincinnati at home. I mean, I got to think that Cincinnati has to be the most disappointing team in the Big 12. What are your thoughts about that?
For sure. Yeah, Cincinnati has really not lived up to their preseason expectations. And then obviously they coasted by with their non-con schedule. I believe at one point they were number 15 in the country. But now being 2-6, I think it showed that Cincinnati has just, yeah, they've not lived up to what they were to be. And I think that non-con played a part into for them not to be able to be really tested before they entered Big 12 play. And so they got smacked in the face by a baseball bat sized L from Kansas State. And I think from there, it just showed that Cincinnati just hasn't, and from there, they haven't been able to show that they can rebound from it. So, really difficult for them really to see anything. I mean, they could pick up a win tomorrow against Utah, maybe to get back
Yeah,
on track. But right now, their schedule, I mean, I do not envy. There might be a few places where they could win, but so,
let's take a look at it real quick. Man, Utah, West Virginia at UCF. Ooh,
and then you host the Utah schools, so maybe, but I don't know. Iowa State, having to go to at Iowa State and in Morgantown, that is not a fun road trip.
sure isn't.
Yep. So pretty difficult. I mean, there could be a few wins in here, but it would most likely wins would be that Utah maybe,
Yeah,
UCF. It depends on which UCF you get.
right.
You like Utah, you host Utah, and then probably Oklahoma State as in Stillwater. But outside of that, I don't see too many wins.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously we're saving the best for last. Man, Houston goes and plays in an instant classic at Allen Fieldhouse. I mean, you saw, you're like, how in the world? I don't understand how you're up six and then you still the game gets taken to overtime. I just don't know how that happens, man. That's absolutely crazy, and I don't know. It just feels like Allen Fieldhouse has sort of lost its luster.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, there were multiple times where Kansas was up 6. I mean, you talk about like in regulation, all you had to do really, I believe, was to hit a couple free throws. Had to want Harris to the line. He went zero. He went dry at the free throw line, 0 for 2. And then Houston able to hit a couple of big threes. I gotta figure out who hit what at the end, but man, this was just
So
something. Let's see. Yeah,
so
go ahead.
to interrupt you, Emmanuel Sharp hit the game tying one to take it to overtime, and I believe it was Malik Wilson that hit the one to take it to double overtime.
Yeah, and that was off of what I believe was a bad inbounds play because I
Yeah,
think Zeke Mayo, I mean Kansas was trying to get the they couldn't even get the ball in. I was looking at it. I'm like, you're up three. I think it was like what 7 seconds to go in overtime.
Yeah,
I,
it was 7 seconds
and
to go to overtime in overtime, and he drained it. I'm like, no way.
yeah, no. I looked at the play and I was just like, worst. Why are you? That was such a bad pass. You passed it basically right to Emmanuel Sharp. You were up three with 7 seconds to go. I would, if I was telling Zeke, if I was Zeke Mayo, if I was in his position, or if I'm his coach, I'd say, and obviously they had no timeouts, I Bleav. That's why he couldn't call timeout because I think they called the timeout to even try to draw up the play to try to end the game. If I'm Bill Self or I'm Zeke Mayo, it's like okay, look for your options. If you can't, just get the ball down the court, chuck it up, chuck it down the court. Worst case scenario, you turn the ball over, but you force Houston to go the full length of the court, and you can set your defense. So that way, you at least have to force Houston into a tougher shot than what they actually got.
Yeah, I mean they didn't even even try to contest or anything. It just wide open threes, faded. I mean, Houston just was came in there and they weren't even phased by it, man. Like it's absolutely nuts, man. Houston is so battle tested, so tough. I mean, and they've moved to 8-0, and I mean it just speaks a testament to Coach Sampson and the type of program that he has down in Houston, man. I mean, this team may be a little less talented offensively, but they have the guys that can be in there tough defensively. And I mean, I'm really excited for that February 22nd matchup.
For sure. And yeah, I mean, talking about offense, I had the question before the season, how will Houston look without Jamal Shed? I mean, for a little bit of time they were not able to get much offensively, but now you saw a couple guys step up. Malik Wilson stepped up off the bench, and then Jawan Roberts led the team with 24 points. He was basically getting whatever he wanted uh, in this game.
Yeah, he was hitting that left hook that he likes to shoot. So I mean, he's gonna be a problem in that game. I'm excited to see how our bigs play when we get to that February 22nd game. I do have one question. And I think this is just a question that everybody has. But what is wrong with Kansas?
I'm not sure. With Kansas, you think on paper, you would think on paper that they would be a much better squad than what they are. I mean, you pay these guys like so much, right? Kansas has one of the biggest NIL budgets in college basketball. You bring in Zeke Mayo from South Dakota State. You brought in AJ Storr from Wisconsin, and then Riley Griffin, I Bleav, was also a transfer. What school did Riley Griffin previously play at?
Let me look. I'm not sure about that one, but I need to look at that one. But yeah, man. Um, like it's
Okay, I
not
found Riley Griffin. Yeah, he's from Alabama. I Bleav he
right.
was a
Yeah,
part
I
of
know.
that. Cause I think was he. I think he was on that Final Four roster for the Crimson Tide.
Yes, he was. He was on the Final Four roster from last year.
Yeah, so you bring that in, and then I will say played well. Like he had a pretty good game against Houston, and Dickinson actually stepped up in a huge game. But it's just that game was just a symbol of bad turnovers because the turnover ratio for that game was 12-5. Houston took care of the ball, meanwhile Kansas didn't. And then your free throws, both teams didn't shoot free throws well, but Kansas just you're at home. You should be able to make more free throws than what you did. You went 17 to 30 at home. So that's something that you can't accept that.
You can't, man. That's
Like that's
unacceptable.
unacceptable. And I think it hasn't been the same. That this it hasn't been the same since that national championship.
I mean,
And you
that. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, now you have like what Bill Self calling out the student section. Um, I mean, hell, I think I even saw like some Kansas fans after the Houston game. They were up in Zeke Mayo's like Instagram DMs so much that he deactivated his Instagram. So things are it's a it's it's just a it's a dumpster fire in Lawrence. I don't. It's hard for me to say, being Iowa State guy, but I I think it just comes down. I good solution.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit there, but yeah, I definitely understand your sentiment. Yeah, it just it doesn't seem like KU is KU, and it's been like that for the last few years. I know we were in a space after we beat Kansas, and they even know that they're not the same like KU. So yeah, that should be something interesting to look into, um, and we'll see how their season ends. And I mean, we play there next Monday, so that should be a very very raucous atmosphere with Iowa State coming into town. So to end this, we are going to go and give look at give and see like let's take a deeper look at the Arizona Wildcats and look at the players that we should watch out for. So I'm gonna share my screen. We're gonna take a deeper look at them.
Yeah, well, you got set up. So I've got the roster. Okay, yep, you have it up. Yeah, so you got
Yep.
Arizona. I love how you have it all the way at the end of the year for Kansas. That's kind of funny. But
Here we go. My bad.
yeah, but yeah, Arizona 7-1, like Iowa State. And this is obviously a huge game to determine who's going to be able to keep up with Houston in this Big 12 race because this Big 12 race, I think Saturday. Yeah, so with that, Saturday, I really thought that proved that Houston is clearly the top dog. And I think for Houston, outside of like maybe us, I don't see a world where Houston picks up a loss. They could easily go undefeated. So for the Big 12 race, Kansas really needed to win that in order to keep the race distance. But this will determine who can try to challenge Houston. So Arizona's roster, there's a couple of names that are familiar for some people. One of the names that I saw like instantly off my head was Caleb Love. Now, remember that name? He was a part of the North Carolina, and I believe he's part of that roster that went to the Final Four and national championship against Kansas as an 8 seed, and was the team responsible for giving Coach K from Duke his final loss.
Yeah, I mean that. I remember I was in Delaware for that, and that North Carolina Duke Final Four matchup was probably going to be an instant classic, man. I mean, and he's developed into a good guy. I mean, he's still old, but like he can play still. I mean, and you look, they have such huge guards, 6'5", 6'4", 6'5". I mean, then you have a guy, and then like the guys inside. Um, Motijas Krivas, he's from Lithuania. He's 7'2". So I mean, this team has some size. And then another Emmanuel Steven, who's from Nigeria, he's 7 foot. Will Manas 6'10". So I mean, this is gonna be a very very good challenge for our bigs when we play against their bigs.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned a couple of those guys. I mean, also got to look out for Anthony Delasoro, uh,
Yes.
9 points per game and 1.5 rebounds per game. So he's going to be another piece that'll contribute. Jaden Bradley, another guard, he puts up 11 points, 11.4 points a game, and has about 4 assists per game. So he's going to be another piece that I'm looking out for. Then you also have Trey Townsend, who, if you remember that name, he was a part of that Oakland roster that beat Kentucky last year with Jack Golke. So that's a familiar name for March Madness sickos and for those who remember last year's. So a lot of talent on this roster, and I mean they're finding form. Tommy Lloyd's got the boys looking good, so really excited to see the matchups. I project the matchup Curtis Jones against Caleb Love. You probably match your best players against your best players. Keyshawn Gilbert may get matched up against Jaden Bradley, and then between Deshaun Jackson, Joshua Jefferson, Brant Chatfield, who do you put to match up best against Trey Townsend and then Krivas?
Krivas is probably going to be guarded by Joshua Jefferson, and then who would you say? Who was the other player that you said? Bradley.
Uh, Trey Townsend.
Oh, Trey Townsend. And then I believe probably you're gonna have to put either Chatfield on Townsend or Deshaun Jackson on Townsend.
Yeah, very curious to see how these matchups look. And then I guess off the bench, uh, well, for Iowa State, more than less, between Demarion Watson, Nate Heisey, I think Demarion Watson is getting like I think he's getting a lot like minutes, especially you saw at the end where he was in for Heisey. So I think I might see more out of Demarion Watson. You still want Heisey in for defense, but I think Demarion Watson will have to look like we'll look to see if Demarion Watson can continue to contribute great minutes for this Iowa State squad and maybe pull out the win. But very exciting game, 9:30 p.m. tip off local time on ESPN. Big Monday, so this is the first of two big Mondays for Iowa State, and this is just going to be a really big road test. They get this win, they cement themselves as the clear number two in the country. And I mean, you can say the same for or not in the country, the Big 12. Excuse me, number two in the Big 12. You can also say the same about Arizona. They win this game, so this is jockeying for position, and I think I'm hoping for fireworks in this game.
I think there will be. Although they're also not really a good 3 point shooting team, so it's going to be a battle in the paint tonight. So it's going to be whose bigs will come to play and who won't. I will say, I think this should be a game. Like I think this is going to be a game that truly shows how where we are without Milan. I think this could be a game or I feel like this should be a game where you just gotta tell Nate Heise to just shoot it, man, because I can tell that his confidence is still like shaken, but you just gotta tell him in order for you to get more confidence, you have to shoot it. Because I saw there were a few times on Saturday where he passed up shots because he couldn't. He was the confidence wasn't there. But I mean, in order for you to get out of that rut, you have to shoot it, man. Like just shoot it, and I mean, if something goes in, it goes in. If not, just continue to shoot. I think that's how I see it.
Yeah, so we'll see. And yeah, I think it's hour and a half. So just tune in, grab your snacks, grab whatever caffeine you need for tonight. I mean, we are in school now. It's week 2, so I mean, you've got probably a lot more coursework, but I mean, you're probably going to be up for students. You're going to be up a while, so I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just complete my homework or whatever. If I'm up late enough, I'm going to just grab like a Red Bull or something, get some caffeine in my system, and I'm watching that game.
Yes, sir. Like I said, I changed my mind. I'm full go, bro. So yeah,
Yeah,
but
and then real note, the new AP poll, I think, yeah, it just came
yes,
out about like what a few minutes ago, or I think an hour ago.
yep,
So let's take a look here. So the top 25. So this is just gonna be from number one to number 25. So number one overall, consensus, no surprise. The top three actually didn't really change at all, if I'm not mistaken. So it's Auburn at number one, Duke at number two, and Iowa State holding still at number three. So it looked like the top three didn't change at all.
yeah.
Follow that.
I saw that, and I was like, huh. I wonder, what? Because you saw in our like friend Discord that said somebody had us all the way down to five. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
I knew that we were
that
gonna
that
finish.
was interesting. Yeah, with the way like because I mean again we won on the road and people know how difficult it is to win on the road. So it was very surprising to see some people maybe think that we would have dropped, but you can't drop us if we win games. I mean that's exactly the case. I mean one of my friends was saying like saying between Auburn and Tennessee both should have dropped because of how bad that game like looked because that was an ugly game to watch as a whole. That Auburn Tennessee game was ugly. But we move. Uh,
Yeah, we move on.
Alabama, yeah, Alabama is coming in at number four. Florida at number five. Then you get Houston moving up a spot after that win in Allen Fieldhouse. They're number six in the country. And then Michigan State comes up at number 7. Tennessee drops 2 spots to number 8. Marquette is number 9 in the country. Number 10 would be Purdue. Kansas moves up a spot at 11, but I think it's just because there was some chaos. And speaking of the chaos, it's right here. Kentucky losing at Vanderbilt, and that drops them from what I Bleav was what they were number 7.
Yeah, they were at number 7. Now they moved down to number 13.
Yeah, yeah, they dropped a few. Yeah, so second week, second top 10 team walks into Nashville, walks into Memorial Gymnasium, and they lose against Vanderbilt.
You don't just go under Vanderbilt and expect to win. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Um,
Hmm.
but yes, I mean, thank you guys for joining us on the Bleav in Iowa State podcast. So thank you for joining us on everybody on the live stream, everybody that listened to the podcast. Thank you. We can be found on Twitter. Me, Tyler, I can be found at Side Tie Guy, and then Cody can be found on Twitter at Matt Campbell Impersonator.
Yep,
So, and then here are our different forms of social media. So you can follow us on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and then I forgot Instagram. And then, like I said last week, a new one that we added was LinkedIn. So if you type in my name, Tyler Carter Coons, you go to videos under my page. You can find the live stream page, live stream videos on there. So thank you guys for listening, tuning in. Make sure to rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast provider, YouTube, Apple Music, or not. Jeez, Apple Podcasts. I'm mumbling on all over all that stuff. My bad, y'all. Um, but thank you guys. So for Tyler Carter,
and for Cody Vancilello,
this is the Bleav in Iowa State podcast. Roll clones, baby.
let's go State.